Lauren Ignited. All right, so we've got Amy Cooper with us. She's a photographer, journalist, and brand ambassador in Detroit, Michigan, which is just around the corner from Chicago. She's primarily known for her portrait work, concert photography, and journalistic fusion pieces. So, welcome, Amy.
Hello.
Hey. So, I heard about you on a podcast, and I just thought what you were doing was really cool. And I just wanted to kind of chat with you because I think, the audience of Lauren Ignited would be really interested in what you're doing. We publish a lot of like concert photography and we talk about, what's going on in the music scene a lot and people love to see like photo work. So I just thought, why not bring you into the show or bring you onto the website and say hello and hear more about what you're doing. All right, so you do your like all of your work is kind of housed under your company Acronym Detroit, right?
Yes, I just go by acronym. I put my domain name as Acronym Detroit so people could find me easier. There's so many people out there with the same names, and so I just want to make sure I differentiate it. But yeah, my company is Acronym, and that's kind of the umbrella that I run under. And for a long time, I had everything separated between that I have a blog as well that I write, which is called Detroit Ginger, but kind of fuse them together almost in such a way that I have two domains, but anything that's more written word goes to that, and things that are photo and journal fusion tend to go to acronym now. So it's kind of expanded from just photo as I started doing just photo for that. And then as time went on, I started doing the brand ambassador work with different clothing lines. And then I started writing with some clothing lines too. So everything just kind of got mixed together into one big umbrella.
Yeah, and isn't that just how it happens? It's like you start like down a path and you're like, I want to do this, then I want to do that, then I want to do this, and then you
Well, I
kind of
say I
realize,
always want to evolve, because there's
yeah.
so many people that don't keep themselves well-rounded, and that's the one thing, like, I've had people ask me, how do I get started doing this? How do I put myself in box A or box B? And I go, you honestly want to be as well-rounded as possible because that makes you more of an asset. So
Hmm.
I have evolved in time and have become this, uh, for lack of a better term, psychotic person.
Uh,
Where I have so many different things that I do.
yeah.
So,
That's funny. So tell us a little bit about your concert photography and what kind of bands do you usually go out and shoot and have you met anybody kind of cool or have any interesting experiences on that concert photography front?
well, locally I started out because obviously you start somewhere, and there were a lot of local bands that I felt that were people that were going to expand and be out there and be somebody. And so two of the bands that I love to see live, and I've done it multiple times and shot for each, were there's a new metal slash alternative band I Prevail, which if anybody knows them, they're the one that did the Blank Space cover from Taylor Swift, and they
Hmm.
basically blew up right after that. And then the other band is a more like harder rock alternative, which is Wilson. And those guys actually got me in touch with as I said, I started working with clothing lines that I was writing for, as well as I started working with a clothing line called Ink Addict, which is a tattoo lifestyle brand. And so those guys got me hooked with other people too. And so those are the two bands that I love to see. And every time that I can get into photograph them, I do because they bring something new to the table every time. Now,
Mm.
from like a bigger aspect, I've done concerts where Snoop Dogg was DJing. I got some pictures of him. I've seen Skrillex perform
Mm.
with Boys Noise before. I've got those guys. And then most recently, which is probably my most interesting experience to date, was I was hit up by Our Lady Pieces management, and they wanted me to do concert photography for them. And so I ended up staying for the entire set, which is unheard of for concert photographers. Normally
Right.
it's like 3 songs and you're done. But these guys wanted me to stay the entire time. And now I'm seeing all of the pictures that I had done for the show being posted on their Facebook page and on their Instagram accounts and stuff. And so it's kind of a surreal experience to me because I used to listen to them when I was younger, and now I'm at the age of 27, and I'm looking at it going, I'm shooting all of these bands now that I grew up listening to. So I have Good Charlotte coming up. I have The Used. I've got Sum 41. All of these kind of rock concerts that I love all of these bands so much, and I just put in for Green Day too, and I'm crossing my fingers that I get that one because that's an intimate show at the Fillmore Detroit, which is a smaller concert venue, so it makes it a lot more fun versus something like a festival where, you know, you have a bunch of bands and things like that. Like we did Dirt Fest this year, and they had some of the more local bands, and that's where I got to see Wilson play. But from the festival experience, you know, you're running from stage to stage and trying to get all these pictures done and everything. But when you have it locked down like that, something in an intimate venue, like Sum 41 is going to be at St. Andrew's Hall in Detroit, which used to be a church, and so it's a small venue. So you get a lot closer to the artist, and you can get more of those raw images. And that's one of my things with portraiture or doing concert photography, that I like to get the real image of somebody, whether it's, you know, an emotion, a feeling, or excitement, or, you know, just that raw, that's that person, I guess is the best way I can describe it. So getting pictures of Rain from Our Lady Peace, he is a raw performer. He has got the best expressions, and you can tell he's feeling the music, and so that's what I try to capture. I don't go in there and go, okay, I gotta get this shot, this shot, this shot. Okay, I'm good. It's trying to find that one shot of the person where they look the most real.
Nice.
So.
And do you feel like you can do that better because you know the band well?
I do, and a lot of the time where I have done work, like, for example, there is a Christian metal band called It Lies Within, and I ended up working with Ink Addict on a interview where we actually did a video interview with these guys. And I didn't have any knowledge of them other than that they were, you know, a sponsored band by Ink Addict. So I went and I listened to all of their music prior, the first couple days before the interview, because I wanted to know what they were like. I wanted to know their feelings. I saw couple of their music videos and things like that, and just doing research, so I kind of had a feel for who they were before I spoke with them. So I wanted to make sure that I had that, so then I got the chance at Dirt Fest to photograph them as well while they were performing. So knowing what kind of energy that they bring to the table is always going to be great, because you're going to have a complete different look from somebody like City and Color versus, you know, watching somebody like Snoop Dogg perform. You know, it's a very different situation. So if you know the music, then you can kind of anticipate what's going to be the best moment to get the emotion, to get the raw feeling. Because, I mean, you'll see different artists perform during different songs, and even something as simple as going to a concert and seeing, like, I went with a friend to see Taylor Swift. I will admit that I went and saw her during her Red Tour, and there was a moment in which you saw her have a raw emotion, and it was a surreal experience watching her perform, just because of the fact that you saw her feeling every emotion during this particular song. And so that's kind of those moments where you see it and you go, that is a piece of somebody that you're never going to see again. And it's interesting to me to always catch that. So I try to, especially with concert photography, learning the music if I don't already know it. And if I know it, even just hyping myself up and listening to it. Like, I guarantee I'm going to listen to Sum 41 nonstop before I shoot that show. Because I want to know, I want to remember, and it's going to be epic for me. So
do you think that that's something, like, growing up that you kind of gravitated towards, like learning about people or getting to know them well enough that they would open up to you about certain things, and you kind of translated that later down the road into photography?
I think so. I had always kind of done portraiture with my friends, which it necessarily wasn't that I was doing photography at the time, but I've had a camera on me since I was 17, 18 years old. I was shooting film, and when I was in high school, I did darkroom, like 13 on up, and so I've always been interested in taking pictures, and it's always been something, to the point of my entire high school career is documented through, I have all of my friends' pictures, I've got videos,
We've done different things to where we look back at everything and it's memories, it's freezing time.
Yeah.
So almost for me, it makes me feel like, I'm, a time traveler, or I'm capturing these moments for people. And so as I got older and I started moving into doing portraits with things, I'm fully known by a lot of people of where I will use people that I know in some of the lines that I shoot. Like if I do a clothing line, or if I'm working with somebody and I want to capture a specific emotion, there's specific people that I know, or I try to fit that person with it. But I always try to make sure I get what I would say, I get them in that photograph, meaning that I translate the way that they are into the photograph somehow. And with a lot of photography, especially if I know the person, whether it be a model or a friend, I can tell when they're not comfortable or when they're not being themselves in a photograph. And it makes me upset. Like, it makes me sad that image comes out and I go, that's not them at all. So as time goes on, I tend to pride myself on that, and I get to know a lot of people when I go to work with them if I haven't worked with them before. So like I had an instance with a girl this weekend where she hired me to do some images for a portfolio, and so I ended up going to pick her up and driving around with her, like driving to the locations and stuff, because I wanted to get to know who she was. And once I got to know who she was, that helps the photography a whole lot more, is creating the personal relationship with somebody and being able to pinpoint, like, okay, this is going to work for her. This is going to be her comfort zone on one hand, but on the other hand, this is going to bring out a side of her that people don't see. And I tend to be able to drill down somehow into some people's disdain and annoyance. I can drill down into people's personalities and things like that pretty easily. So if I get to know them well enough, I'm able to find who they are and who I can find in them that they'll let me see. And then I use that in a photograph, and that's where a lot of people go, like, that's why they like my stuff, is because you can see them in it.
So let's say, like, if let's say a band is listening to this today, right, and they need to get maybe like album art put together, or just like new shots of the band, like group photos and headshots and stuff, and like, what advice would you give to them when they're like selecting their photographer for that, or when they're like trying to brainstorm about locations or setups? Because I'm sure that's a tricky process to go through, and it's like you've got so many options, right? Like, how do you get the best out of like that session with your photographer? Like, how can the band be the most prepared that they can be?
I would say the best thing that they can do is come with a clear idea of what they're interested in and what they want, but at the same time, I find that a lot of people, like, you don't want, and it's with any type of portraiture, you don't want somebody coming in with like a stack of Pinterest pins going, hey, this is what I want, this exact shot, I want this exact shot, because you're going to ruin the artistry between yourself and the photographer. But what I find will be the best for them is that, say you're a metal band, or say you're a rock band, you want to capture, what type of rock music that you are. So, if you had somebody like the band that I was talking about earlier, Wilson, and you had them out doing stuff, you kind of want that grittier look. You want the gritty but party side of it, because they're very well known for being fun, outgoing, crazy guys that if you look at their social media thing with, I think it's at Wilson Parties, you just look at their stuff and go, oh my gosh, you guys are ridiculous. And so you kind of want to capture that in them, but it would be different. You take them versus somebody, like if you got to photograph Dallas Green, you're going to put him in a more somber environment. You're going to have, probably darker tones, but at the same time, it will give you kind of a more comforting vibe, versus you wouldn't take Dallas Green and put him in a dive bar and have, chicks with their butts hanging out, hanging around him. It's not, you have a difference between the two. So capturing who you are as a band is going to be your most important asset. So finding somebody that can do that with you and is willing to go that extra step to understand who you are and then illustrate that into a photograph is going to be your best bet. And I know that sounds super hard compared to but there are people out there, and I also find, and this is your plug for any like local business or anything, that you will find certain people, whether it be on Instagram or through other people or social media and everything, and just look at everything that they have to offer, because they're more willing as a local artist to go the extra mile for you. And so as long as you know that they can produce quality, you can find that creating that extra personal relationship with somebody versus, a high-end photographer that wants to throw you in a studio and hit the shutter button a couple times and then here's your pay. You want to definitely show people who you are with your images, because that's the first thing we look for when you do any form of media, because I'm a journalist as my day job. So looking at media, I look at pictures and I try to figure out, what the band is if I haven't heard of it before or something like that. And you don't want to have your image misrepresent you.
Absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about the Detroit music scene. I'm a big fan of Detroit, and I've been there a couple of times. Recently, I was in Detroit in May, and I met with a friend of mine that lives out there, and he was saying, that downtown Detroit is getting rebuilt, and there's a lot of cool things happening in Detroit. But I'm really interested in what's going on in the Detroit music scene. Are there any big changes with concert venues, or is there anything being revamped or brought back, or just what are you seeing from a music scene perspective?
It's kind of interesting to me to watch the music scene unfold here, because it's been around for so long. We're known as Detroit Rock City, but we're also known as a big proprietor of electronic music.
Right.
So a lot of people, as I talked about all these rock bands today, as a lot of people don't realize, I started doing a lot of my music scene stuff through local house music. I worked at a venue, Grasshopper Underground in Ferndale, for quite a bit of time, and getting the personal relationships with all of those guys opened up, and I loved going to Movement, which used to be called DEMF, the Electronic Music Festival. And that's where I ended up seeing Snoop Dogg, because he was DJing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Still not sure why, but
I'm like, wait a minute, that's like a tech fest.
yeah, it was weird. He basically played Trap Queen and Journey, and it was really uncomfortable. So Grizz, who played before him, was amazing, and the local people that play, there's a couple guys that are known as the Belleville Three, and we had Juan Atkins, Kevin Saunderson, Derek May.
Yeah.
Those guys are well known for the electronic scene, so it's we've got the best of both worlds here, whether we have electronic or we've got the rock music, and then there's a lot of underground hip hop that happens here. I recorded a couple weeks ago, because I've been branching into branching into video here and there, and I recorded an 11 music cipher with a bunch of Detroit artists out at a launch for a clothing line, and seeing all of this raw talent, because this place is a talent mecca. And I see it every day that there's so many people that are just kind of waiting to be discovered, but at the same time putting in the work while they're here. And it's the people that hustle that can get there and show their talent that helps. So with whether it be rock music, like Dirt Fest, you're getting all these local people that Matt Dalton brings in, and they're generating more knowledge of the underground rock scene. Then you have electronic music with all of the clubs that are in the area. Because even with the clubs that are in the area, I know I mentioned the bigger venues like Fillmore Detroit and St. Andrews Hall, and then you have a lot of the music people, like Jack White used to play at the Magic Stick all the time before the White Stripes blew up, and people like that have come back to Detroit, whether it be Jack White, Kid Rock, Eminem, who are always trying to push forth the idea of Detroit and why Detroit is important. But we all have our own scene, and I'm lucky to be part of it in any way between the three. But watching it unfold as the city is being rejuvenated is what makes it all the more interesting, because for the longest time, Detroit has been an underdog. It's been one of those places where mainstream media thinks we're a war zone, and really in certain spots, it looks a little scary. If anybody looks at a picture of the Packard plant, they're like, oh my God, that's what Detroit looks like everywhere. No, Detroit is a beautiful place that a lot of people don't get to see. And that's why a lot of the time I've spent my time trying to show people more of Detroit, because there's more than the urban ruin. There's a lot more going on here. And now that there's, transit systems are being put in and everything else, there's going to be a lot more that people can do with their music scene because they have more access to it. So I'm hoping to see more as time goes on with what happens with the venues and different things that are opening up, because it's going to give more people more exposure and more knowledge to some of these artists that really deserve to be seen.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, the first time I went to Detroit, it was for Movement, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and gosh, I think it was like 5 years ago or something, and it was funny because I was so excited to go because I'd never been to Detroit. One of my best college friends was from Detroit, and so all he ever talked about was Detroit,
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of pride, right? It's just like from wherever you're from, you're proud of it, and he was super proud of Detroit, and so I was like, every time you talk more and more about it, I'm like, I just want to go so bad and like see it, and but it was funny because like when I was on the plane ride there, people were like, oh, are you like coming or going, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to Detroit to visit, and a lot of people would be like, why? But they were from Detroit, and I didn't get it. I was like, but don't you want people to come like visit,
There's two sides to it. It gets really weird sometimes because there is still a lot of, I wouldn't say disgust, but just irritation with Detroit, and it's only because of the fact that it's people who don't quite know it or haven't given it a chance to see it that act that way. A lot of people from the suburbs, or if they're from Rochester or Birmingham and things like that, and that it's a very clean, it would be, if you translate it into Chicago terms, it would be the people that are used to Mag Mile and everything else, thinking of Logan Square or, that sort of mindset of, oh, well, that's on the outskirts of this or that. And you start trying to, or you go south side of Chicago here, and it'd be somebody from the Mag Mile era with a lot of money thinking, oh, why are you going to the south side of Chicago to see a show? Like, it's kind of that mindset to them.
Okay.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
When they see Detroit, because my best friend is from Chicago, so that's why I kind of know a little bit about that whole thing.
Yeah.
But she showed me certain spots in Chicago and everything, and I feel like Chicago and Detroit, as well as Boston and Detroit, have many of the same prideful aspects and many of the same downfall aspects. Now, Boston is a very clean and beautiful place, so I look at Boston and I'm like, that would be the only place I'd probably ever live if I left Detroit, because I love it there. The pride within their city, their sports teams, everything is mimicked with Detroit in terms of how proud they are to be from there. And we'd ride or die for anybody when it comes to our sports teams or our icons and things like that. And it's the same thing with Boston, where, Tom Brady can do no wrong for Boston. We have our own people that are very much the same way here. So when some people, like if you have somebody on a plane like going, well, why would you want to go to Detroit? It was probably somebody who's used to living in a suburban area or something that's very clean, and I don't like using the term hoity-toity or stuck up because, everybody has their own life that they live, but it's probably more so that, and that's part of that shift that I see coming, because now that the city is being revitalized and we have Dan Gilbert who runs Quicken Loans, he's doing a lot for the city, and a lot of things are changing because of him. We find that there's more people coming into the city than ever before and trying to learn more about it and trying to see more about it. And people aren't as afraid or scared of it as they used to be. Now, granted, a lot of people still won't go down there at night. They're a little worried about the cars and things like that. And we do have a moderately sized homeless situation going on here. There's a lot of places where we do a lot of work with people. And even just a lot of the artists, we get together and try to serve food to some of the homeless people and things like that, to try to give them um, give them a push to get out there and do more themselves, or just that somebody cares and believes in them. But with that happening, it's happening a lot in the grassroots aspect, where it's a lot of us artists, whether it be musicians or people who do photography or people who even do mural artwork, which the city will also like to call graffiti artists. But there's a lot of us that try to put back into the city, and I feel like there's a lot more local businesses popping up here than there are chains, and so it's kind of all of us pulling ourselves up from our own bootstraps, which I find to be absolutely amazing. So I don't know if that answered the question. I get passionate and I start rambling.
No, hey, I get it. No, I get it. I totally do. When I was in Detroit, just this past May, we walked past a shop, and I wish I could remember the name of the shop. Maybe you know it. But what I thought was so interesting is like they created all of these kind of like t-shirts and like mugs and that kind of stuff with like Detroit slogans on them, and Detroit like just prideful stuff, like Detroit.
Was there a neon light in the window that said "Nothing Stops Detroit"?
Yes.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's right on Woodward.
Yeah. But like, don't like a lot of the proceeds from that store go back to like building the community up in Detroit?
I'm not entirely sure. I think that store almost has a lot of, it's not a pop-up shop or anything like that, but it has a lot of different artists in it. So I have a feeling that it's kind of one of those things where you have an artist that brings in their work and you're supporting local artists that are doing it, but I don't know if their proceeds go to Detroit. I know, for example, there is a clothing line that I worked with recently, and it's called District 1 Detroit, and a lot of their proceeds tend to go to local charities, local businesses. Like we just did a fashion shoot a couple weeks ago where we had people come in, and I had my own friends and models come in, and we shot them in the outfits and stuff, but all of the money that got collected at the door went to Detroit Dog Rescue, which is one of the only no-kill shelters in the area. And so you get a lot of people bringing pit bulls and things like that, so we raise money for something like that. So there are a lot of clothing lines that will donate funds to people or have events like that where money is being donated to a cause. And so a lot of us try to help each other out where we can.
Very cool. Oh, that's awesome. So when people find you on social media, it's Acronym Detroit, right?
Yep.
And
with the exception of Facebook, the Facebook one is weird because the Detroit part, the O is a 0.
I was going to ask you about that. I was like, it looks like it's a 0.
Well, what had happened was, as Will Smith would say, I had a couple pages that were out there because I had my nightclub photography on one, and then I had my standard photography on another, and after a while it just got to be a pain in the butt, so I merged them together. But doing so, my URL got screwed up, so I had to use that 0 instead of the O, which I just put it out there just to make sure everybody knows it. But everything else you can find me through Acronym Detroit, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, Vimeo, YouTube, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I guess speaking to somebody who's never been to Detroit, how would you describe the city in like 5 words?
It's its own living organism.
Nice.
The best way to try it. I don't know if that was 5 or 6 or I doubled the word. But.
Yeah, whatever it was good. I liked it. That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, I'm glad we could have you, kind of drop by the blog and talk about Detroit a little bit more and the music scene. And I just really want to encourage people to go out there and definitely check out your work. I think that's like a really great first way to get, to kind of position your head about Detroit, because like you said, there's so much like weird stuff coming out of the media.
mainstream media does not cover the things that I see at
right.
all.
Yeah,
it just encompasses a totally different image than we're used to seeing on an everyday basis.
Yeah, and I think downtown Detroit too is so beautiful, and like I went to the Detroit Institute for the Arts.
Oh yes.
Oh my God, that
our
museum.
DIA is the best place ever. The Detroit Institute of Arts is one of the coolest places that I've ever been, and I was actually just driving by there the other day with a friend, and I said, we have got one of the best museums in the entire U.S. I've been to a bunch of museums, and still the DIA is my favorite because they bring in so much amazing artwork, and they bring in curated sets. Like they did this tribute to dance a couple months ago that I was able to go to the press viewing for, and it was awesome. They had video elements with the paintings and sculptures, and they just try to bring so much to it, and we almost lost our museum because of all the bankruptcy things that had happened and stuff, and people rallied together and donated money and things like that to get it back to a safe place. And it is just one of the best things. Like, it would actually make me heartbroken if that museum was gone, because there's so much there, and they bring through Warhols and Van Goghs on top of their normal curated works, and so it's an amazing place. And for us, like for anybody from Wayne County, Oakland County, like some of the ones that are around here, we get to go for free because it's our place. And then they have a standard rate fee of people coming in from other places, but it's even not nearly as expensive as like your Shedd Aquarium or your Field Museum or things like that, because that's crazy expensive a lot of the time. When I've gone to the ones in Chicago, it's totally worth it. But ours, I think, I want to say it's under $20 to get into our museum. So
that's incredible. Yeah, and just just the amount of artwork that is in that museum is insane. Like it's absolutely beautiful. But
we have some local ones too that they have, like there's a local modern art museum down the road from the DIA, call it MoCAD, and they do a lot of things during the year. Like they sponsor a thing called the Electricity, where people put in art installations throughout the city, especially through like the Wayne State University campus and stuff. And just the artwork around here is immense, and so that's why they say it's a creative environment, because we foster that so much in our culture here.
Nice. Yeah, Detroit is really cool. It's definitely one of my favorite cities, and I can't wait to come back, and I hope the next time I come back that I can hang out with you.
Oh, totally. We'll have to, because I know you found me through Zeke Anders, the non-members. So if we can nail him down too, like we will be a force of nature running through the city.
That would be so fun.
He lives between here and LA, so you have to nail him down, and we can all go out and do something, and it'll be an amazing experience. I'm sure of it.
Oh my gosh, let's do it. That sounds awesome. And I traveled between here, between Chicago and Houston. So if you guys are ever on like the Gulf Coast side of things, we can meet up down there too.
Heck yeah, I'm totally down. I'll be in Chicago a couple more times this year too, so I'll have to let you know when I come through.
Yes, please do. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing like some cool tips about photography and just kind of like your story and what's going on with Detroit, and keep us updated. Like send out some stuff to the Lauren Ignited, like
will do. Page, I'm working on my email blasts now, so I will definitely get some of those working out for you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that was fun.
There we go.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I just really started wanting to do like interviews like via audio, and so it's not necessarily like
the write-up and the edits of somebody's work and everything else too.
Yeah.
I found it interesting. I did a blog interview with one of my friends, Sadie, and she runs Hip in Detroit here. And when I did hers, she actually just like sent me questions, and I wrote it back out and everything, and she literally copied and pasted everything I wrote into it. I was like, thank you for doing that, because I feel like a lot of times when you do some sort of interview, you lose a part of the person's voice when you don't let them speak for themselves. So it's very cool too. It also helps that I occasionally help my friends out with podcasts and stuff like that, so I at least know how to do a verbal interview without being a total idiot. But I tend to get so passionate that I ramble. So.
Oh no problem. It's awesome. I loved it. And I'm totally down to hang out. So I'll have to just coordinate our schedules.
Yeah, let me know when you're going to be around if you come through, and vice versa. I'll let you know when I go out to Chicago, because I said my best friend lives there and she's getting married next year, so there's going to be a lot of back and forth before
Nice.
that. So
Okay.
same
And
thing
if
with I gotta nail down Zeke and hang out with him, because
right.
we were talking about he wanted to go urban exploring and he wanted to do some photography and some of the abandoned stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'll take you. It's fine. Like,
Mhm.
so definitely gotta nail him down to hang out as well.
Okay, cool. And if there's ever anything that you feel like it'd be good to publish to this audience, to like the Law and Ignited audience, I'd be happy to share your work. If there's
Totally.
whatever you can think
I'm
of.
sure there's probably a bunch of different things that I could send over, like with even some of the music scene. If you did something like a spotlight on somebody or whatever, because I know there will be some more that I will have contact with this year, especially through Ink Addict stuff. That would be great to have some that we can repurpose, especially like those guys Wilson that I was talking about. Those guys
Yeah.
are amazing. So getting those guys on some sort of something would be amazing.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm totally down.
Awesome. Well, you've got my phone number and my email, so we are well connected.
Perfect.
Reach out to me however you need to. I'll answer.
All right. Awesome. You have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.